Minnesota sports fans, to another edition of Vikings on SI. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Will Ragatz and Joseph Nelson. Joe, how we doing?
Wow.
Will, how we doing?
Willie, Johnny, good to see you. Yeah, good to see you.
Doing good on this Friday.
Had to drop that into the conversation here. Let's jump right into this. Friday is our prediction/preview video of the week. Vikings hosting Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. This is a big one for obvious revenge game narratives, which have been kind of a theme of the season. So let's jump right into our predictions. Will, I'll start with you. What's your prediction for Vikings-Falcons this weekend?
Yeah, the Vikings could have easily lost a couple weeks ago against the Bears when I picked the loss, I think, for the first time all season. If Caleb Williams and the Bears had driven down to start overtime and scored a touchdown, they could have easily lost last week against the Cardinals, down by 13, or even after taking the lead. Kyler Murray had one last drive, but they've been able to get it done. I actually think, you could say that maybe they're playing with fire recently. I think they're maybe getting due for a win that isn't so kind of nail biting and narrow in the final score. I think they get this done against Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. They're 5-point favorites at home, I believe. I think they cover that. I think they win something like 27-20 this week against Atlanta, Atlanta's not a bad team by any means, but the season-long sample, they're not on the same level as the Vikings. Kirk Cousins coming off a 4-interception game and now faces the defense with the most interceptions in the NFL. I think he's got at least another 1 or 2 in him this week at U.S. Bank Stadium. I think the Vikings offense will be able to do some things as well with the way Sam Darnold's playing recently against a Falcons defense that's good but not great.
I'm going to go Vikings 41, Falcons 21. I see this as an explosive game for Sam Darnold and some garbage time stats for Kirk Cousins. Think of it like Vikings-Eagles on Monday night a couple of years ago, where Jefferson fumbled across the pylon to change the whole narrative and flow of that game. Like, the Vikings were getting killed after that. They were down by, 14 or 17 points or something. And then Kirk had a nice third quarter, fourth quarter, and put up a bunch of yards. I can see something like that happening again this week. He'll be in Minnesota facing a significant amount of pressure. The crowd noise is going to be crazy. He's been bad when it comes to passing in pressure situations, not clutch situations. We know he's had a couple of game-winning drives, but when he's faced with immense pressure, not just blitzing, not bringing more than 4 defenders, just any kind of pressure, he's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL this season. In fact, I was playing around on Pro Football Focus and looking at the numbers, and his PFF passing grade among quarterbacks who have had at least 50% of 189 dropbacks, he actually ranks 19th in the NFL. Now, again, Josh Allen and Jared Goff are right around him, and Patrick Mahomes. So it's not actually, I'm sorry. Nope, never mind. That's the wrong stat. But he's super close here. Hang on. I'm getting it right. Those guys are near the top, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. But when it comes to passing grade under pressure, oh man, I got to scroll down forever to find Kirk Cousins at number 16 with a 51.3 grade. I mean, he's bad. His turnover-worthy throws are at like 7% in those situations. Sam Darnold, by the way, against pressure this year, the number 2 passing grade in the NFL at 67.4. Only Joe Burrow has been better. So I look at Kirk and I see this same scenario unfolding where he's going to be playing against a lot of pressure in a hostile environment. On the road, it's not his home stadium anymore. He doesn't have Justin Jefferson to throw to. So I got a feeling he's going to have a really, really rough homecoming, and the Vikings are going to blow away a Falcons team that has only scored 36 points in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think this is going to be a really rough homecoming for Kirk Cousins. He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since November 3rd against the Dallas Cowboys in the early third quarter of that game. It's been a long time since he's thrown a touchdown pass. They've clearly struggled on offense lately, as you said, 36 points over the last couple of weeks. It's not been good for the Falcons. I think this is a defense that's primed and ready to go. I know there are some injuries concerns that'll certainly impact how this defense plays, but I have a feeling that Kirk Cousins isn't going to have a great day on Sunday, and I think I texted to you, Will, 30-10 Vikings, and that's kind of where I'm sitting right now with my prediction. Do we have predictions from Nolan or Tony before we go on any further, Will?
Yes, we do. I think, we've got Nolan. Oh, Nolan, I actually did not realize this when he sent it to me. He's got the Falcons winning 28 to
What a
23.
fool!
Hater.
What is his deal?
He said it seems too fitting that Cousins would bounce back on Sunday and walk out of the stadium with a "you like that."
Oh my God, he's just.
That's kind of fun.
I think
Tony's got the Vikings winning 30 to 21.
Okay, Nolan clearly
Tony
put,
has the Vikings winning.
Yeah, Nolan put too many zins in his lip today, and that's a stupid prediction. I may have to fire him. This is bad. Not good.
I think if we mixed it up every once in a while and have one of us or two of us pick against the Vikings,
why?
I think that makes for a little more variety than if we just all five of us pick the Vikings every single week.
But they're 10-2. I mean, what are you gonna?
Hater.
They're 10-2. You guys,
they could have lost these last two games pretty easily.
I don't know about it. I mean, they could have lost a handful of games pretty easily, but they also could have blown out like 8 out of their 12 opponents very easily. And the scores we've talked about this. The scores are a lot closer in the final box score than they actually were over the course of the majority of most of the games. So, hey, one more stat, by the way. Kirk Cousins has slippery fingers, man, and I don't think it's because his center has a sweaty butt like it used to be in Minnesota. He is tied for the NFL lead with 12 fumbles this year, and he's gotten super lucky. He's only lost 2 of them. In comparison, Sam Darnold has fumbled 7 times and lost 4 of them. The Falcons are 6-6, in part because of luck. If he loses half of those fumbles like most guys tend to do, they're probably not even a 500 team.
Yeah, the Falcons, I think the thing that gives me the most confidence in the Vikings this week, and you guys touched on it, is Kirk Cousins going against Brian Flores' defense. And I mean, a couple of years ago, last year, when Brian Flores got here, Kirk Cousins was flustered by that defense in off-season practices and all of the complexity and all the aggressiveness that they were showing, even in like OTAs in spring of 2023, and then into training camp. And I mean, he's gone against it a lot over the last couple of years, but or last year specifically. And I just think you're right. He is kind of a statue in the pocket, especially coming off of the Achilles. And I just don't think that serves him well going against Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel and this Vikings defense led by Brian Flores that is just going to come after him undoubtedly in a lot of different ways. I think that just is going to be a rough matchup for Kirk. The ball hawking players the Vikings have on the second level. And then, I mean, Grenard, we can't say enough about him. He's the NFC Defensive Player of the Month for November, leads the league in pressures. I can see him getting to Cousins a few times and forcing either some sacks, fumbles, or errant throws because Cousins just doesn't have that Sam Darnold kind of escapability factor when he is under duress.
Take out Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold from this conversation. I asked this last week. I think I'm going to continue asking this. When you look at this game, if the Vikings come out the winners, who is the reason why? And you can't use either of the quarterbacks because that's too easy of an answer. So if the Vikings come out winners and improve to 11-2 on the season, they stay within a game of the Lions, they move even a game further ahead of the Packers. Who's the reason why the Vikings won on Sunday?
I mean, I just talked about him. I think it'll have a lot to do with Flores. I think it'll have a lot to do with Jonathan Grenard. A key area to watch definitely will be what the Vikings do at cornerback. I'm expecting them not to have Stephon Gilmore. We're recording this very shortly before the final injury report will be out, but he didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday. It seems like they're going to be smart with him. He's going to miss this game. So Fabian Moreau is going to be kind of thrust into action again as the third corner. That's another guy to watch. And then offensively, I think, the line's got to hold up and they got to get the run game going a little bit more than they did last week, because I think Aaron Jones had 5 carries, Cam Akers had 4 carries, something like that. They kind of abandoned the run against the Cardinals. They got to get that going again, because this Falcons defense hasn't been great this year. But you look at the names. I mean, in the back end of their defense, you've got AJ Terrell at corner, Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates is a really experienced, good safety duo. You've got Grady Jarrett in the middle, who is always giving Garrett Bradbury problems. You've got Matthew Judon. I mean, they don't actually have a guy with with a more than 25 pressures on the season, which I mean Grenard has 60 for context, but they have some pieces who have maybe had slower seasons but have gotten it done in the past. It's a good defense. I think the Vikings will need to get the run game going with Aaron Jones and be a little more balanced, and so they're not putting as much on Darnold's shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to take the quarterbacks out of the equation because when you talk about a non-quarterback player who's going to impact the game so much that it's an absolute difference maker, I still go back to the guys who are running at the quarterbacks. I still think it is the Jonathan Grenards and Andrew Van Ginkels and Dallas Turners and Patrick Jones the seconds. It's all of these Vikings pass rushers who are going to be all over Kirk. I mean, if they're not all over Kirk, Kirk could have an absolutely monstrous game with Stephon Gilmore likely out. It's very possible Kirk throws for 400 yards if the pressure isn't there. I just don't see any scenario where Kirk is feeling comfortable on Sunday. So I will say it's anybody and everybody who's putting pressure on Cousins on Sunday who are the difference makers.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see who comes out as the key players in this one. Also, when we look at this game and how this will affect the standings, it was really impacted last night in Thursday Night Football's game between the Packers and the Lions, which the Lions came out victors by 3 points. Is it more important that the Vikings stay within a game of the Lions because you think they can catch them and overtake them in the standings, or is it more important that they get some space between themselves and the Packers because they're their tougher competition going down the stretch? Who really is the real competition for the Vikings that they should be keeping track of throughout the rest of the season? The Packers, who are a game and a half and could be 2 games behind them, or is the Lions, who could be 2 games ahead of them this weekend if the Vikings fail to win?
I think you can't give up by any means on the Lions idea, and they're not looking at it this way. They're just trying to go win a football game. From our perspective, I mean, it's going to be very tough to catch the Lions because they do have a tiebreaker. So it's not, the Vikings don't control their own destiny there, where if they win out, even in winning in week 18 at Detroit, but the Lions don't lose before then, the Lions would win the tiebreaker. I believe it's on common games because the Vikings lost to the Rams and the Lions beat the Rams. You have to go to like the 3rd tiebreaker or something. But I don't know. The Lions, they've won 11 in a row, but a few of them, I mean, Packers game, the Bears game, the Texans game have been kind of narrow wins. They're not
Starting to pile up for the Lions.
They're not bludgeoning everybody like they did the AFC South. They have a ton of defensive injuries. It's really impressive the way they've been able to overcome that. But, Dan Campbell, he went for it on 4th down a bunch of times, and it worked out on Thursday night. But maybe at some point it won't work out, and it'll bite them. We'll see. They do have the Bills coming up next week. They have to play the 49ers. They play the Bears, who, I don't know, gave them trouble last time. So maybe that'll happen again with the new head coach. We'll see. But realistically, I think the Vikings most likely are going to be trying to hold off Green Bay, and that's going to be a big, big game, I think, in week 17 for likely the 5 seed.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, it's still very possible the Vikings, with a win on Sunday, are just a game back, and with 4 weeks to go, they could hypothetically, go 3-1 down the stretch, and then Detroit goes 2-2. I mean, but the Vikings technically have the 3rd hardest remaining strength of schedule in the NFL. It's not a cupcake. It's a juggernaut feast. And then the Lions have the 5th hardest schedule. But that Buffalo game, that's in Detroit. That's next Sunday the 15th. Detroit's going to be favored in that one. Injuries are going to be big, but Buffalo certainly is capable of going on the road and beating the Lions. Like Will mentioned, that Chicago game, that's at Soldier Field 3 days before Christmas. Who knows what the weather's going to be like? That could be a total toss-up. And then that San Francisco game is interesting because, the health of the 49ers, they're just not the same. But if they get any little bit healthier, which it may be at the point where it doesn't matter how healthy they are, but that's in San Francisco at Levi's Stadium. That could be tough as well. Prime time, 17 games into weeks into the season, and you guys are just exhausted at that point. And if the Vikings are still breathing down Detroit's neck or tied, there's a ton of pressure in that one. And that same Sunday, the Vikings will be hosting the Packers. So it could set the stage for a lot of pressure late in the season. And we know that Detroit is very capable of handling pressure. They've come through in the clutch every time they've needed to this season. I still like the chances the Vikings have, but the greater likelihood is clearly securing that 5 seed and then taking on the 4 seed in the playoffs, which is probably one of 6 teams at this point. It's either Tampa Bay, Atlanta, the winner of the South, or any of the 4 teams in the West. So you got to feel pretty good if you're going on the road against any 6 of those teams, but you definitely feel better as the 1 seed at home on a bye into the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is as we move down the season, the pressure keeps ramping up between these two teams, and it'll be interesting to see how the Vikings handle and how Sam Darnold handles it. Boys, I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be fun to watch on Sunday. Will, I know you'll be back on Sunday right here on the channel with the recap of that one, and we'll have more to come here across Minnesota Sports, here across the Bring Me the Sports YouTube channel. Be sure to hit subscribe. It does help us get found. Also notifies you every time we post a new video here on the channel. We'll talk to you again coming up Monday. Minnesota Sports.
Bye, Johnny. Bye, Will. Eat.